Now, before we create our camera script, one of the things we're going to need to do is take a basic overview of scripting and take a look at how we can learn how to write Maya script. Maya, the entire 3D package is written using MEL script. Anything you do in Maya is a MEL script. So any actions that we carry out inside of Maya, we can write a script to do that same action ourselves. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can do that. First thing you want to do is open up your script editor, and you can access that in the lower right hand corner by clicking this button. Once you have that window open, we're going to go ahead and resize it by just coming up here and hovering in the upper left hand corner of this window and just dragging this up so we can get a pretty big window. You can drag it up as high as you want. And then we're just going to go ahead and maybe resize this down a little bit so we get a little bit more of the scripting window on top. Now, the scripting editor window is broke down very simple. First, you have pretty much your actions here with saving scripts, opening scripts, and perhaps you could go ahead and clear your history, clear the input, clear all. So you just have these quick icons for quick access. Now, all we want to do here is we want to go ahead and take a look at what happens when we create an object inside of Maya. So let's go ahead and zoom in here a bit. And we're going to go ahead and just start by creating a cube. So I'm going to just click on this cube. And you'll notice as soon as I clicked on the cube, a MEL script was executed. In this upper window for the script editor, this shows you any executed scripts or anything that has occurred within Maya. And down here you have your area where you can write in your own personal scripts. So we can see here that we've created this cube and two scripts have ran here consecutively by just clicking that one button. So this button is effectively a script in and of itself. So we can see that we have create Polygon Cube. This is the first action. Now breaking this down, you can see that there is create Polygon Cube. This would be a command. And then this command, or rather statement, is ended by a semicolon. Anytime you see a semicolon, that means from the beginning of it to the end of it, just before the semicolon, is the command itself. A semicolon denotes the end of a statement. So if I were to take this entire line here, Control plus C to copy it, to come down to our MEL script and hit Control plus V, I would be able to execute this script. Now let's go ahead and delete our current box. So I will select the box and press delete. And you'll notice that when I selected the box, two other scripts ran. You had select-r p cube, that was me selecting the cube. And then you had do delete, which was me deleting the cube. So again, anything you do in Maya, everything you do in Maya is a MEL script, because MEL stands for Maya Embedded Language. It is the language that Maya uses. So let's go ahead, and now that we have our create Polygon Cube statement set up inside MEL, to execute script that we've written and placed inside this MEL area, we can just come up here and click the play button, and you can see play stands for execute. So that will execute the script that we've written in here. Now we didn't include this second line, but let's see what happens with just putting in this first line. So I'll go ahead and click play, and I can see that it executed the statement, created a cube, and it also went ahead and put in this default setup here for creating Polygon Cube. Create Polygon Cube is rather shorthand for entering this entire line of code. So you can see that if we just entered this in, this first line, and executed it, we get our cube, and Maya would know that we wanted to create a default cube. So it would automatically enter in this second line for us and append it. So to create the default cube with its width, height, and dimensions. So we get our cube. We could also kind of not use this shorthand statement, and we could go ahead and just enter in the longhand statement ourselves. So I were to grab this entire longhand, hit Control plus C, and I'll just paste it down into MEL, and we're going to go ahead and delete our cube so we have a fresh area to work with. And let's go ahead and also clear our scripting area so that way we can keep an eye on exactly what it is that we're doing. So we'll come up here and we will go ahead and clear the history. So to break down what's happening with polycube, we can see that there is the executed command, which is polycube. This is the command that we're going to create. So we enter this, it knows that we want to create a primitive cube. But then it wants to know some other information. It's going to want to know -w, -h, and -d. Now what does this mean? When you break a script down, you're going to have the beginning command, and then you're going to have attributes applied to that command. So you're going to say that we want to create a cube primitive, but then we also want to set the -w. What does -w stand for? Well, I know that a cube is going to have a width, a height, and a depth to it. So I'm going to guess that -w is going to be the command for entering the attribute for the width. So I'm going to tell Maya that when it creates this cube, I want it to have a width of 1 Maya unit. I also want it to have a height of 1 Maya unit and a depth of 1 Maya unit. To confirm that, you can play with the script. So you can come in here and say -W, I think that stands for width. So I can enter in a 4. Then I can go ahead and execute the command. And now I can see, yes, that did stand for width. It changed the width. And you can do that with each of the different commands. And this is really all there is to learning how to do MEL script. You just go in, do whatever it is using these standard commands to execute it. So let's say if I were to create this cube, I can read off the area of the command, find out exactly what command it requires to create that cube, and then I can write my own script based on it. But I can do more than just create a cube. Let's say I wanted to create a cube, then I wanted to move it, right? So I could go ahead and move it. And I can see that now that I've moved it, and I'm watching over here that what's happening is first I see that I selected the cube and then I also moved it. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. I already have the cube created here. I could also go ahead and copy this selection. So after I create it, I want Maya to select it. And then I also want Maya to move it to this location. So I'll go ahead and copy that, come down here, press enter, and put it on a new line. And I can see that these are each statements because again, I said we have select -our cube, and this is a command. So we have our command here, and we know that this statement, this command statement, is being ended because there's a semicolon. If you see a semicolon, that means a statement has just finished being written, and Maya knows to execute it because there's a semicolon. And I can see that this is move -r, so move is the command for moving something. Then there's -r, and you can look up what -r means, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. And then you can see that there is a vector 3 here. There are 3 dimensions. It wants to know x, y, and z values. And we can see that by seeing that we moved it on the z, and this third number here is changed on the z. So let's see what happens when we execute multiple lines of code. So we'll go ahead and grab our cube. We'll just delete it. And let's clear our history. And then we'll go ahead and execute what we have in our MEL area. So I'll come up here, click play, and you'll notice that the cube didn't get created and just stay in the center. It was created, it was selected, and then it was moved, just like we have here. So now your mind is probably opening up. Okay, there's all kinds of stuff you can do with MEL scripting. You can write a script to create multiple objects and set them up. So let's say you have a scene and you need to keep on working with the same set of objects. You could create a script now for it, write it yourself, and then you'll have a button that you can work with anytime you want to do that. So let's see how we can create a button out of this. So I'll go ahead and hit Control+C. I'll copy this set of code again, hit Control+V, I'll paste it. And let's go ahead and delete this cube so we can see our button in action when we execute it. Let's clear the history as well while we're at it. Now to save a script after you've written it to your shelf, what you want to do is first enter that script into this area. And the easiest way to do this saving is by having the shelf selected. These are shelves. Each one of these tabs can be considered a shelf. And having the shelf selected that you want to save your script to. Well, since this is going to be a primitive polygon object that we're going to be creating, I'll have the polygons shelf selected. Then with this script in this area, I just come up to File, and I just say save script to shelf. And I have to give it a name, so we'll say create cube, or we could say create moved cube. In fact, I'll just say moved cube to make it shorter, and then I'll go ahead and click OK. Now you can see that the button has just popped up here on our polygon shelf, and even if we close out Maya completely and reopen it, our script will maintain its location inside of Maya. You never have to worry about losing this unless you uninstall Maya and reinstall Maya. In that case, if you're ever worried about that, you can always click File and save your script somewhere onto your hard drive. That way you could always load the script later if you ever lose your Maya installation. You could load all your scripts up that you had saved somewhere on your hard drive. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can find out exactly what each of these commands do. So I'm just going to delete these bottom two so we can go back to our basic cube creation script. And let's say I don't know, I figured out that the W was the width, this command here was the height, and -D was the depth. But what does SX do? What does SY do? And what does SZ do? Well, I already know what they do, but let's say even if you change this number and you ran the script and nothing looked like it changed, so you have no idea what this exactly did. You could look it up easily by just going to the Maya documentation. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to open up my internet web browser, and below this video, if you look in the description, you can find a link to the Autodesk website for the Maya 2014 documentation. Now, Maya 2015 is still using the Maya 2014 manual, is essentially what this is. And to find out what this script does, what these commands do once you're on this site, is you could either search for it in the scripting section by selecting scripting, and then go ahead and search in the MEL and expressions. And this is essentially where you'll find all the information for MEL scripting that you want. Another quicker way to do it is to just select search. And then in the search area, what do you want to search for? You want to search, drop this down and say you want to search in the scripting and customization. Well, then you need to know what you want to search for. Essentially, what you want to search for is the command itself. This is the command itself that you would want to search for. And these are just inputs that you can put into the command itself. So we want to search for the command. So I'll hit Control+C on Polycube. I'll go back into the Maya docs, hit Control+V, and I'll search for Polycube inside scripting and customization. I'll press enter, and usually the top result will be the one you're looking for, and you can see here Polycube is the command. So we can say, okay, what are the inputs that we can do for the Polycube command? If you just scroll down a bit, you'll see long name and short name. This is broken down, so you can either type in axis or you can just do -ax, will be the same thing. Usually I work with the shorthand. If you can't remember shorthand very well, you can work with the long name for it. That's up to you entirely. So let's see here. We said SX was the one we were looking for because we knew this was width, height, and depth. But we didn't know what SX does because we tried changing the number, just kind of make believe. We changed the number and nothing happened after the SX. So we come into the Maya documentation and see that that's the subdivisions for SX. So every time I increase this number, it will increase how many subdivisions our cube is initially created with. So we can do even more than this. We could go ahead and add more commands to this by just going into the documentation and finding out what else we're allowed to do with the Polycube command. So what other attributes can we change upon its initial creation? We can come down and we can see, oh, here's a common flag. And common flags essentially mean that most commands within Maya, so we're creating a cube now, if we were to do another command that created a cylinder or a sphere, this common flag would be common to those as well. So -n is going to be a common flag that says you can name something when you create it. So let's go ahead and take an example of how we could work with this. We can look at see its dash name, or we could do -n, and we come over here and see that it takes a string, right? String is one of the special ones that you kind of have to pay attention to. When you get a string, you have to put the string inside of double quotations. So let's go ahead and append this onto our script. We have Polycube and we have all the initial values. Let's change this subdivisions X back down to a 1. And then we'll come on the end and we'll say space, we'll say our -n for the name, then we'll press space and put 2 quotation marks. Since it's a string, we know we have to put it inside of 2 quotation marks. And let's give this a name. We're going to call this our Brain Poof Cube. All right, so we'll say Brain Poof Cube. That's going to be the name of this object when we create it. So I'll go ahead and select this old cube. I'll just delete it. And with that old cube deleted, we'll go ahead and run our new script. So I'll come up here, press play, and now we can see we've created an initial cube, but what have we done here? We've also given it a name, and we can minimize, hit Control+A to open up our attribute editor, and you can see this is the Brain Poof Cube. This is the Brain Poof Cube shape. And if we even go to our outliner, we can see that it has given it the name Brain Poof Cube. So not only can we create a primitive, we can also give it a name. And we figured all that out just by opening up the Maya documentation, searching for the command, which was Polycube, and then just looking at the options that we can set when we initially create it. So in the next video, we'll take a look at how we can echo all the commands, even the hidden ones that run in the background, in order to create our camera script. And we'll go ahead and write out our entire camera script. So we'll create those 3 cameras and automatically hide them. If you have any questions or comments, please post below the video on brainpoof.com and click subscribe to follow us on YouTube.